Good morning. It was the summer of the possum. It was 2010, and I will always remember when I first learned what true leadership in practice looked like. When thinking about people I identify as leaders, I'm able to dissect three main qualities: betterment, willingness, and enthusiasm. I recognize that perhaps one of the best leadership qualities is the desire to improve, learn, grow, and be better, because who in here is the best that they can be? Being better is a challenging feat, but something a true leader strives for. The second quality I recognize aptly is the willingness to sacrifice. Here, there's a difference between sacrificing and being willing to sacrifice. Many people may sacrifice hours spent away from family, home, their life's pleasures, but how many do so begrudgingly versus willingly? It is this willingness, just like that little girl in The Legend of the Blue Bonnet, that exemplifies what it means to be true leaders. And finally, I believe enthusiasm exists in various degrees. It may not look the same in every person, but enthusiasm can be whittled down to passion and eagerness, a balanced combination of which leads to focused initiative. I want to tell you about two of the most amazing leaders I have ever had the opportunity to work with. When I was in college, I was studying animal behavior, and I was looking for a place where I could work with animals of all sorts to increase my own animal handling experience. I contacted an animal sanctuary called SC Cares, which stands for South Carolina Coastal Animal Rescue and Educational Sanctuary. SC Cares houses over 150 exotic animals in Georgetown, South Carolina. Their mission is to rescue, rehabilitate, and release as many animals as they can. And if they can't be released, they're given a permanent home within the sanctuary for the rest of their days. They took me as an intern. When I first pulled into the property, I noticed all of the many enclosures and many of the animals, but then I noticed their personal house. It really wasn't a house, but it was a shack, and it was run down, a small building with a fenced-out yard in the back and a 1.5-foot smaller fence in the front yard, which I later learned was for the tortoises. I first met Skip Yeager. Skip took me into the bird building, and instantly I was overloaded. There were about 15 macaws and about 30 other birds all screaming. If you've never heard a macaw scream, imagine the worst noise ever. Skip brought me to the back to meet his partner and co-founder, Cindy Hedrick. Cindy gave me a once-over, showed me where to sign the waiver, how to log my hours, and took me on a brief tour of the property. Some of the highlights included Dennis the deer, Daisy and Wilbur the wild boars, Jimmy the potbelly pig, Shiloh and his pack of wolf hybrids, Captain Jack and his pack of wolves, and Chester the great horned owl. When we came back in, I had my first assignment: clean Sophie's cage. Sophie was a few-month-old baby possum that was born with only 3 legs. This was the first time I had seen a possum up close. This was the first time I really got to see a possum's teeth up close while I was holding the possum. I think Marjorie can't get to that. Okay. Needless to say, over the next few days, I fell in love with Sophie. My daily routine included changing newspaper in every bird cage. There were a lot. Feeding and watering all the birds, preparing fresh fruit for the sugar gliders and topping with mealworms, soaking iguanas, preparing raw meatballs with supplements for the wolves and wolf hybrids, thawing frozen rats for Monty the ball python and Chester the owl, tossing hay to the horses, feeding Kumar the llama with berserk llama syndrome. That is technically a thing. And it is. And my favorite, feeding Dennis the deer grapes. My days were busy. I was filthy and exhausted but fulfilled. One morning, I came into a very tired Cindy, who explained that possum babies were found the night previously when a dog had killed the mother. She'd, of course, taken them in. Possum babies don't take a bottle easily and require feedings up to 6 times a day. I offered to help Cindy with the delicate task. Over the next weeks, we fed and fed the possums until they were strong enough to be released. During that time, Cindy and I got to know each other, and I quickly learned how amazing she and Skip are. Cindy and Skip were not always animal rescuers. Before this adventure in her life, she had been a county clerk, Skip a businessman. They had a very nice house. In fact, they had two, one of which was on a lake. They drove nice cars. They went on vacation. Despite the level of comfort, they were not fulfilled. They were not doing purposeful work. They both loved animals and developed the desire to rescue animals after taking a wildlife rehabilitation course. They sold both houses, their cars, and quit their jobs. They bought a shack on a large tract of land in which they happily lived. They built enclosures by hand, and before they knew it, they were filled to capacity with animals that were unwanted, abused, abandoned, and injured. In many ways, their quality of living diminished, but their quality of life increased. Here I was, an impressionable college student looking for direction. During those conversations over feeding the possums, I recognized the direction I wanted to go in. While a lot of my peers were seeking riches upon graduation, I realized I was seeking purpose. But I only realized this through Cindy and Skip's purposeful leadership. Cindy and Skip always wanted to be better. They wanted to be better for their animals. They wanted to make better enclosures, give better tours, and provide better care, all while being totally run on Skip's meager salary running a candy store, their life savings, volunteer hours, and more importantly, their hearts. If you asked Cindy and Skip why they would be willing to sacrifice their life savings and their swanky lives, they wouldn't look at it as sacrificing at all. They would simply say it was a calling, and they would do it all over again without hesitating. Finally, the enthusiasm they exude for caring for their animals, their life's purpose, and their reason is contagious. They made me become even more passionate about animal care. They handled everyday occurrences such as an animal becoming sick, a volunteer not showing up, or a donation not coming through with grace, and they chugged right along, never losing their focus or drive. Through the hard days of feeding 9 possum babies 6 times a day, on top of every other necessary daily chore, their passion never dwindled. When I graduated and left South Carolina, I left behind 2 solid people and all of the animals I came to love. Yet the lessons Cindy and Skip taught me stayed with me. Their leadership was far-reaching, and still to this day, I view them as 2 people who have influenced me for a lifetime. Thank you.